So I've been struck by the gay men I've been meeting who are reclaiming their spirituality, those who are pushed out of the nest and yet refuse to let that exile define them. Guys who've dared to reach for the deep spiritual connection that has always been their birthright, and I really admire that. And in a minute, I want to share some of my story around this. But first, if you're struggling with your sexuality and your spirituality, I want to say this. You are not broken. You are not spiritually lost. You're standing at the edge of something profound, more profound than you may realize. Something is very right with you. And I am glad you're alive. And I'm here to tell you, it gets a lot better if you follow what is true for you. There's something amazing for you on the other side of all of this, so hang in there. And I personally grew up Methodist and had a moment about 5 years ago where I was ready to just light my confirmation certificate on fire and send my hometown church a video of it. Yeah, like that's what it felt like at that time before I did some of my inner work around this. I know a lot of us, and I do as well, still carry deep wounds from our religious past, especially if you grew up as a gay man within Christianity or another traditional faith. And I know so many of you were rejected by your own parents because of your religion, or had your religious community turn on you on a dime, not to mention self-loathing and hiding one's sexuality. And my heart aches for you if you're going through that right now. I think I got off lucky with it. And then there's the religious present, where it's hard to gain escape velocity from the things we are ready to be free from. And that's part of what this video speaks to, how to get to the other side and to reconnect to an authentic spirituality where you can heal and be more fully you. So maybe you've left the community you grew up with behind already. Maybe you're angry at God, a God you can't see, and wondering if there really is somebody up there hearing your prayers, or you're grieving, or you're feeling an ache every time you drive by the church you used to go to. That's what we're talking about. The searing wounds around all this. Many of us try to bury that ache, distracting ourselves with television and social circles, anything but the raw silence of our spiritual exile. Or maybe the years have passed and you've sought out new paths and found new community and reconnected with spirit, only to find something still missing, that nagging feeling where you just can't seem to shake your love of what you grew up with, along with that constant reminder in the back of your head that you're not welcome back in those doors. Like, I know my head starts to hang just thinking about walking back into the church I grew up in. That sense of spiritual exile, even though I'm happy with my current spiritual community. Like, can you relate to this? Comment below if you're with me here. But what if that ache, that sense of exile, that anger, that nagging self-criticism, that good people don't get kicked out of the nest, like what if that isn't a sign of failure? What if it's a calling? On the one hand, there's what I sometimes still sometimes still experience, like those moments when the loud, judging religious voices from the past pop up inside me, critiquing my love, my desire, my very essence, telling me something in me needs fixing if I want their love. And for so long, I took that personally, chasing that conditional love. But here's the deeper truth. I've discovered by simply walking away and starting from scratch multiple times, that losing everything in our religious and spiritual life, even when it shows up as religious trauma for us, can be the best gift we are ever given in life. And walking away from the rubble is part of the journey, as hard as it is. And it's not the best gift just because suffering makes you stronger or something like that, but because it shatters the comfort of spiritual stagnation and it breaks us free from all the baggage, from the kindergarten level drawings of some guy sitting up on a cloud to the surround sound of unkind voices that simply block our spiritual path forward, the threshold guardians we have to confront and get past to continue the hero's journey forward. Leaving forces you to question everything and to find what really matters, to assess the world for yourself, and in the process to find who you really are. And that questioning can open a depth of spirituality that most people never dare to touch out of fear of losing everything. And sometimes we do. But on the shaman's way, on the hero's journey, it's the cost of entry, letting go of everything we thought was true about spirit and ourselves so we can discover it for real. So on the one hand, there's the personal journey. Like, do you really want to stay stuck in resentment and negativity? Do you really want to be angry at God for all the mean people on the planet and their unkind words? So many of us spend years thinking about the past and everything we want to escape and trying to forgive instead of actually breaking free and connecting to what we do want. And the real question is, will you use what you went through as fuel to awaken, to dive deeper into your spiritual truth, instead of letting these people break you and transform your suffering into profound growth and happiness in spite of that? And if you don't want to do it just for yourself, think of all the guys going through this right now. Can you and I break free enough to help those who come after us not have to suffer like this? This trauma isn't an ending, it's an initiation, it's an invitation, and it's what I want to connect with you around in this video. So I know this journey because I've lived it. I grew up United Methodist in one of the most conservative parts of the country, singing in the choir every Sunday, and I looked forward to church every Sunday and even dragged my family to come along sometimes. I was super religious as a kid. And I loved feeling like a good person. I loved the rush of light and love I would feel when I would connect to spirit, and those moments felt sacred to me. Singing hymns that opened my heart to spirit, surrounded by community and tradition. I even did a few sermons and solos on youth group Sundays. But even then, in my teens, I could feel the limits of caring that this community had for me. Like a plant outgrowing its pot, roots all growing in circles, while this quiet whisper rises within me like, hey, you don't belong here anymore. You're not straight. They wouldn't be okay with you if they knew. Like, why are you still here? Things didn't make sense even then. I was a teenager with dyed hair and green painted nails, sitting in the choir loft, writing poetry that questioned the sermons. The creeds didn't make sense to my rational mind, and I didn't make much sense to them either. Everybody there just kind of ignored my oddness. But the rejection I experienced wasn't overt. No preacher ever condemned me outright. But the theology sent a clear message: you're welcome here, just not as you are. And I absorbed all the fire and brimstone thinking through my friends, several of whom weren't even allowed to dance or listen to music. I did survive coming out to a few friends in high school, but mostly just hung low out of fear, and I aligned myself with waiting until marriage, just punting all these problems for later. In college, I joined another Methodist church and their choir and made community there. I joined the Oberlin Christian Fellowship and traveled with a gospel choir. And the youth group leader there was this fire and brimstone type warning about being sexual at all in college. And I found myself mostly just trying to squeeze the water faucet shut. Ugh, like repression and more repression. And I was actually celibate in college without even a kiss during my 4 years of college at one of the most progressive schools in the country. It was odd. Like, so many people around me were actually saying positive things like, be yourself, it's okay to be you. Everyone's welcome here, and supporting gay love and marriage, and yet everything in me was just squeezing and shut down. I was watertight to love out of fear and anxiety and just hanging out in the closet and trying to be a good person with the occasional breaking point. But at some point in my third year, something just snapped related to going to church. I was not straight, and the church I was attending was anti-gay, even if the minister didn't preach on it, and I felt hypocritical and hurt every time I'd walk in the door on Sunday mornings. And I know you can relate to this, that sense of just not being welcome in my own community, in my own skin, without anybody having to tell it to me. It was like being slimed, first by them and then by myself, as this ongoing echo. And so one Sunday I just didn't go and never went back. I told the minister I was too busy with schoolwork to continue. And I felt relief, finally, relief from this cognitive split in me, relief to refuse to be in spaces and traditions that didn't honor my full humanity, relief to finally stand up for myself, my integrity, and a path forward, and free to actually experience spirit, which I discovered was not locked up in some lockbox in the church basement. I actually didn't have to be in an organized religion to experience what religion was trying to point me to. And I became more spiritual, but not religious. So for me, it was different perhaps from some of you. Leaving wasn't this total loss of faith, it was a liberation for me. And it shattered the ceiling that conventional religion had placed on my spiritual growth. Because I was having spiritual experiences already, but leaving wasn't this ending I thought it was going to be. It really became an invitation to expand beyond this limited container I had outgrown. And that decision to finally leave set me on a true spiritual journey of direct experience of spirit, which is what we'll talk about in a minute, fueled by authenticity and this deep connection with the divine that just began to blossom. But how do we actually reclaim our inner voice around this? That's the big challenge here. Angry religious voices that we grow up with leave these angry voices inside us. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like that place of self-criticism, self-judgment, attacking ourselves, being masochistic, or telling ourselves we're not a good person or that we need to fix ourselves. Can you relate to that? Like, it hurts. And these inner voices leave us reeling and feeling shame and being overly self-critical for years. Sometimes it sounds like the voice of a parent telling us we're bad. Other times it's a preacher or the words of a televangelist we saw on TV in the background of our minds. Like we're sponges as kids, and we just absorb any negative religious messaging around us. And this becomes a form of religious trauma. We might as well have PTSD from the constant attacks inside our own heads. And these voices aren't even our own. They're crashing the party whenever joy begins to stir in our hearts, whenever desire burns too brightly, or like whenever freedom starts to bloom in us. Like these harsh voices say, hey, you're sinful. You're broken. You'll pay for this. You know what I mean? And how, though, are we to enjoy our lives, to be healthy in our sexuality with all this noise in the background? It just doesn't work. We need an exorcism, really. So let's actually do it. Pause for a moment, place a hand on your heart, and take a slow breath. Feel into yourself. Can you hear that voice that comments on your gayness? And bear with me. We'll release and exorcise this in a moment. We have to find it first. Like, I know it's super hard for me to even look at. I don't want to admit that's still in me, that there's something from that distant past still winning. But hear it. And notice how your body responds. Maybe there's a tightness in your chest, a heaviness in your stomach, a looking down, some numbness that's been there for years. Maybe there's a subtle knowing that the words are true on some level, where we've swallowed the pill and it actually feels true to us, a sense of being defective, as if the words hypnotized us. And how do we break free of this trance? That's where we're going. This is what trauma does. It freezes us and locks our sexy fire and our integrity away in layers of fear and silence. But as you look and bring your awareness to this, feel the thaw, your wholeness, the beauty of your own being underneath all those unkind words. Remember who you are when you're happy. Feel the ice melt. Find the fire at your core of your being, or visualize yourself relighting it in your heart if the light got blown out. And then go back to the unkind words and voices, the thoughts in your mind telling you something about you, that something about you is inherently flawed. Where does that voice live in your body? One's open, one's closed. How does this one sound? And does it wear the face of a parent, a preacher, society itself? Feel the grip for a moment. Not to obey it, but to recognize it for what it is. It's only by facing it directly that we can deflate its power over us. Notice that that voice isn't you. It never was. Take a moment and contrast it with what is true. On the one hand, the pile of slime that got dumped on you as a kid. And on the other, underneath all of that is the promise of all religion and spirituality, that you are a divine being, that you are God's creation, that you are lovable in the Creator's eyes, without you having to lift a finger as you are. As you are. It can be shocking. And try toggling back and forth this layer of slime in our minds, these unkind voices. And then the underlying truth in this present moment as you look around the room, it's like, wow, I am part of the miracle. Simple shift of mind and the hypnotic trance of negativity breaks for a moment. And if you can notice your divinity for even a moment, that's the start of freedom, of breaking the trance of what you want, what you went through. And it's the start of the journey of healing from religious shame and trauma. Those voices are simply not you. They're the voices of unhappy, unfree, fearful people living out their own echoes of religious trauma, and you are one of the lucky ones breaking free. I personally encountered this deeply during a recent shamanic journey in Peru. 8 hours into visions, it surfaced like sharp and cutting, this relentless diatribe of guilt and self-judgment. It spoke as if echoing from some medieval religious tribunal obsessed with sin and punishment. It had knives out for my attraction to men, even telling me that loving someone was wrong. And I was like, WTF? And it was implying that I should be celibate, as if I had been in these previous lives I was remembering. But then after 3 nights of this realization finally broke through. Wait, this isn't my conscience. This isn't my higher self, some spirit guide or the voice of God yelling at me. It's me. And wow, am I an uptight fucker? This wasn't guidance. It was this outdated pile of judgment stitched together from puritanical sermons and who knows how many lifetimes of this and societal fear. And it wasn't leading me towards some moral perfection. It was dragging me backwards, anchoring me to however many centuries of fear and rejection of sexuality. And my eyes finally opened to the trance I had been in for 40 years or 2,000 years, who knows how long. And so I stood up within myself and faced it. And what had once felt like this powerful Wizard of Oz voice revealed itself as hollow. And that's what these voices are. Scarecrows made of old judgments built from other people's hangups and fears. So I rewrote that script, and I've been asking myself since then, whose voices truly deserve space in my mind? Not society's fears, not this echo of outdated shame, but the voices of mentors who speak with clarity and compassion, spiritual teachers who guide me through darkness or love and remind me of who I truly am when I'm down. And I've always valued my conscience, but it wasn't until these journeys that I finally found a true inner guide for myself rooted in compassion, not fear, a voice aligned with love, not weighed down by these chains of shame. And the shift for me has been profound over the last couple of years. And now when that old voice stirs, I usually meet it with this firm no. I don't need it as a squatter in my mind, and I don't let it disturb the deep love I feel toward my partner and other guys in my life. Very different. And those polluted rivers filled with trash that you see catching fire in the news before some environmental organization swoops in to clean things up. That's what the before and after feels like in my inner life. On the one hand, realizing that I'm not the source of all that filth. Society left me with a mess, but the source of all that trash has to go, and I have to allow it. And here's what became undeniably clear. It is my job to say hell no to whatever trash doesn't belong in my life, and yes to what does, without self-sabotage, without clinging to what needs to change. And that kind of flaming darkness does not get to give me advice to influence me anymore. I'm not going to participate in it. And by clearing out what doesn't belong, the divine finally flows through me, unhindered by the voices and the rubbish of the past and all the blocks that was creating. And as a gay man, that flow is finally pure and radiant and unmistakably sacred, and sex coming from this place is unmistakably sacred and life-changing. And now it's your turn. I invite you to listen for that voice within. Can you hear it? Ask yourself, Would someone who loves me say this? Is this voice in my head aligned with who I am becoming, with the happiness I want? And if your life feels like that flaming river of trash, what part of you has been allowing this to happen? You're not a passive victim. You're not absolved just because of your environment. Like, it's time to rally. It's time to say hell no to having your life feel like this, and to call in the environmental cleanup team of people and healthy communities and mentors, guys like you who will actually support and love you. And I promise you, they exist, and that you are worthy, and that you can break free if you're set your will to it, or really to die trying. You don't have to let these voices run your life. You can rewrite it. You can replace the harshness, an inner critic with compassion, the judgment with truth, the fear with the radiant wisdom of your highest self. And this is where any form of true spirituality becomes a catalyst for profound transformation. And for me, I found Tantra, and it didn't just help me think differently, it invites you to feel the sacredness in your body and your soul. It draws you into experiences where joy and connection and deep love dissolve those old voices entirely. Like, imagine the sacred so fully embodied within you that there's no room left for shame to even whisper. That's what some of the first Tantra retreats I attended were like, and it helped me find myself. And that's what I want for you, to have a chance to step out of the hypnosis of negativity in your life and to experience yourself as lovable, whole, and happy. For you to find your own authentic voice and spiritual path beyond all the voices of judgment, experiencing instead a fierce love and a bravery to be authentic in a repressed world. To get past condemnation and rediscover connection, finding your way forward. So if you've been sitting with this, feeling into those voices, catching yourself in the trance of old shame, I want to acknowledge you for that. That work takes some real courage. And here's what I've learned from my own journey and from walking with guys in our community for years. This wound tends to heal in community, not alone. And not just any community. You need a community where you don't have to pick between your spirituality and your sexuality, where the two can finally be in the same room together. That's what you're wanting, I'm betting. And if you're in the Raleigh-Durham area, come find us at trianglegaymenstantra.com, and that's the work we do. And if you're elsewhere, either come visit us or look for communities like the Mankind Project or Body Electric or various gay men's support groups that are probably near you. But places where conscious gay men are doing this work together. These aren't just groups, they're more like circles where something real shifts because you're held by men who know what you've been through. Where you can discover, not just intellectually know it, but actually feel that you are loved as you are, that you are sacred as you are. That the divine isn't somewhere on the other side of all your shame, but pouring through you all the way down right now, as you are. Because let me say this clearly, because it needs to be said. Nothing gets to stand between you and the divine nature that lives inside you. Not the theology of the church or temple you grew up in, not the voices in your head that borrowed their words from other people's fear, not society's confusion about what your love means. That fire in you, that longing for something sacred in your connections with other guys, it's not the problem. It's the most alive part of you, the part calling you to the divine. And it's been waiting for you to stop apologizing for it, to stop apologizing for existing, and to go for what brings you to life. and you don't have to be ready to go for it. Even if you feel a bit like a grub or a caterpillar in your current state, just remember that your basic nature is that of a butterfly, and it is your destiny to fly. And if you want support on this path, personal mentoring or coaching or just a real conversation with someone who gets it, reach out. My contact is in the description below. There's lots of other guys in our community as well we can connect you with. But we have upcoming retreats, and whether or not you come to ours, I really hope you'll take a moment and look up some of the inspiring and life-changing men's retreats coming up near you. And part 2 of this conversation is already up. We go deeper into what I call the secret gift of losing your religion, and how practices like Tantra open a completely different kind of spiritual life than what we left behind. Link in the description. And if this spoke to you, please like and subscribe. These conversations matter, and your journey matters. I'll see you in the next one.